James Bond.
Say what again? I dare you. I double dare you, motherfucker. Say what one more goddamn time. Humans sacrifice, dogs and cats living together. That's hysteria. Wow. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Hey guys, welcome back to the Lucid Nightmare. I'm your host as always, Jay Schatzer, and today I've got a fantastic Krimi film lined up for us. It is Alfred Vorreer's 1963 beautifully shot flick. It is Das Tisch Tusch, which is, in English, The Indian Scarf. And guys, this one is, well, it's fabulous. It's just beautifully shot like most Krimi films are, and Alfred Vorreer is just a fantastic director of this genre. So let's get right into this one. Here is The Indian Scarf. The Indian Scarf is another wonderful cinematic Krimi adaptation based on the Edgar Wallace novel of the same name. Directed by genre veteran Alfred Vorreer, the film displays some outstanding atmospheric shots combined with an eclectic cast of characters that transform this movie into an engaging whodunit story in which the bodies literally begin to pile up as a mad killer stalks the visitors of a luxurious estate. With an enjoyable combination of horror, comedy, and intrigue, The Indian Scarf does a tremendous job in juggling all of these varying elements in order to deliver a creamy entry that seems inspirational material for future subgenres such as the Italian giallo movies and the 80s slasher flicks. The film begins with the murder of Lord Edward Lebanon, a wealthy man who violently leaves this world by the hands of a gloved killer armed with an Indian scarf. After the millionaire's untimely death, his greedy relatives are called to the estate to witness the reading of the will, each foaming at the mouth in anticipation over receiving a hefty inheritance. To their dismay, they come to find that there is a stipulation that requires them to spend a week in the castle together in order for them to receive their money. With bad blood abound and long-standing feuds reaching unbearable levels, the simple act of staying on the castle grounds for a week becomes a struggle for survival, for there is a murderer in their midst. One by one, family members begin dropping like flies, as the bulk of the inheritance finds fewer people to divvy up between. Is the killer one of them, acting out an opportunistic plot? Or is there something far more sinister and strange going on with this rash of killings? In true Krimi fashion, The Indian Scarf is an intricately played out murder mystery that always keeps the audience guessing as it narrows down the playing field in the most entertaining of ways. Hans Drach plays the role of Frank Tanner, the executor of Lord Edward Lebanon's estate and reader of the will. Hans Drach is no stranger to the Krimi genre, having starred in a number of excellent entries in which he did some rather admirable work, and in this entry he proves he's a master of the genre. Having recently seen his performance in Der Hexer, playing the role of James W. Wesby, I have to say that he is an enjoyable actor that really brings a sense of respectability to the various characters that he undertakes. In this film, Hines takes on the form of a detective, so to speak, as he tries desperately to figure out who the real killer is within the group. The position of trying to wrangle all of these characters together and pick apart their personal grudges is a mass undertaking, and the story takes so many twists and turns that you often find yourself wondering if Hines's Frank Tanner is behind the murders. So the fact that Drach was able to sustain such a memorable and established character is a great example of his pull and validity as an actor. The rest of the ensemble cast is a sight to behold, filled with such interesting vagrants as a dubious priest named Reverend Hastings, played by Alexander Engel, a drugged-up artist named Pete Ross, played by Klaus Kinski, a venomous widower named Emily Lebanon, played by Elizabeth Flickenschild, a large monster of a man named Chico, played by Addie Berber, and an unusually silly butler named Richard Maria Bonwit, played by the always entertaining Eddie Arndt. Eddie especially carries a great deal of the film with his strange wit and unorthodox approach to the dire material. Eddie Arndt was usually typecast in these Krimi entries as the comic relief. Mostly his sole purpose in these films was to lighten the mood of the piece and bring about a sense of fun to the most dismal proceedings. When I was first introduced to his work, I felt the contrast of his performance was quite shocking and unusual, but the inclusion of his presence in these types of films makes for an obtuse concoction that adds a delightful sense of fun into the mix. In The Indian Scarf, Eddie milks this unorthodox formula for all it's worth, giving some exceptionally hilarious performances that seem like a toned-down version of Tim Curry's portrayal of the madcap butler from Clue. Eddie Arndt and the rest of the cast do a remarkable job in filling out their respective roles, and their execution allows the film to feel lived in and tremendously diverse. Like most Krimi entries, The Indian Scarf has a great abundance of atmosphere and tonal ambiguity, as it flaunts its delicate balance of horror and comedy. With the main plot of the film showcasing a group of people being murdered, one after the other, you would think that the movie would be a strictly downtrodden affair. But it is played out in such a tongue-in-cheek manner that it begins to turn into a fun murder mystery, albeit one that has a twisted sense of humor. This is clearly represented by the character of Richard Maria Bonwit, played by Eddie Arndt. Each time a family member bites the dust, Eddie's butler character quietly begins taking away one place sitting at the dinner table, simply and calmly informing the rest of the surviving guests that another person has been murdered. His nonchalant delivery of these lines is priceless in their emotionally void resonance, and the reaction by the rest of the cast is unusual to say the least. The unconventional tone that is established in these scenes is perfectly blended against the film's black comedic undertones, making for a Krimi entry that feels deliciously evil and overwhelmingly fun. Another aspect of the production that I felt was rather endearing was the implementation of the killer and his method of strangulation as his primary form of dealing out death. The movie felt eerily like a prototype version of an Italian giallo or an 80s-era slasher flick, with its point-of-view shots and excessive body count. Often at times I had the impression that I was watching a lost gem from one of these aforementioned subgenres, though one that was under the influence of laughing gas or some other kind of loopy mind-altering blend. The gothic imagery that the filmmakers bombard onto the audience, and the placement of the characters within the mysterious mansion filled with secrets and hidden passageways, give the film the impression of being in the same ilk as other features that prominently display their antagonist as a masked killer who stalks the entire cast until only a few remain. I thoroughly enjoyed this extraordinarily obscure take on the genre, and the cast of backstabbers and opportunistic vagabonds are a joy to see interact. The Indian Scarf is an extremely enjoyable Krimi film that governs over a slew of interesting characters, while maintaining to keep all of them relevant and prevalent to the storyline. With the abundance of roles to fill within the movie, each player brings their own unique brand of acting to the table, and a choice few go above and beyond the call of duty in order to deliver a string of highly memorable performances. Heinz Droch, Eddie Arndt, and Klaus Kinski especially allow their characters to shine within this topsy-turvy world filled with mystery and murder, and their presence in this film is beyond palpable to the overall feel of this devilishly Krimi entry. The mixture of horror-tinged atmosphere and comedy-infused situations is superbly executed, resulting in a hybrid that is both thrilling and entertaining to the last drop. The simplistic plot of a murder mystery combined with the wild array of characters that inhabit this fictional world is the perfect recipe for a fantasy Krimi film. And the concept that this all happens within the grounds of a beautifully gothic mansion estate is icing on the cake. The Indian Scarf pulls out all the punches when it comes to delivering a production that is both off-the-rails crazy and unpredictable. Yet in this madness, it is still able to rest nicely within the confines of the genre. That is an accomplishment that is easier said than done, but the Indian Scarf achieves this amazing feat with flying colors. If you're looking for a Krimi film that blends the traditional contrasting concepts of the genre into an ideal mixture of pure entertainment, then look no further. The Indian Scarf is the perfect murder mystery. And that is The Indian Scarf, guys. Just a hell of a lot of fun. One of those Krimi films that you really get into and just get lost in all the characters and all the mayhem that happens. So guys, that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed that one. I hope it was informational, because the Krimi genre is really, really underrated in film lore. Not many people have seen the films. They're hard to get, but ultimately finding them and watching them, it all pays off, all the hard work. So guys, that's it for me today. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you like what I'm doing here. If you do, please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment below. But that's it for me, guys. I will see you at the next movie review. Take care.